Welcome to Edison Open Forum Cannabinoids 2021. My name's Vivienne Parry. Now, legalisation, increasing acceptance and demand for both pharmaceutical and consumer products mean the cannabinoid industry is booming. By 2026, the global market is estimated to be worth $60 million, but biosynthesis could take it to new heights. Open Forum asked the brightest minds in CBD what they think the impact of biosynthesis will be and what's next for their sector. Fleta Solomon, Managing Director of Little Green Pharma, joins me from Australia. Fleta, hello.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me.
So the operative word in our conversation, I suspect, is going to be Australian. So tell me a bit more about Little Green Pharma.
Sure. Yeah, so Little Green Pharma, it is an Australian company. It's a publicly listed company. We were the first in Australia to produce locally grown cannabis medicines for patient use. And it's actually vertically integrated, which just means that we operate across the entire supply chain. So we have control over all of our growing and the cultivation of the cannabis plants, but also on that manufacturing side. And that's really important to us, particularly when we distribute those to our patients. We've actually acquired a facility in Denmark as well. So we're geographically diverse in terms of our operations, so both in Australia and in Europe. And then that's all EU GMP, which is good manufacturing practice. It's really important because it's the absolute highest grade of cannabis medicines that you can get. And that's really important because that is what our sole focus is that pharmaceutical grade cannabis medicines to treat medical conditions. So in a nutshell, Little Green Pharma is well, I'll tell you what our vision is, because this is something that it's just so dear and it makes our team is so passionate and driven. And it's because we want to do extraordinary things for our patients, and our purpose is to solve their problems. You know, these are real problems that patients are having across the globe. So that's what we're striving to do. We're delivering much needed medicines now while we work towards better drug delivery systems to be able to push those active ingredients in the cannabis medicines into the human body more effectively. So I think that's exciting for us and also for patients in the future.
Now, tell me, first of all, where is Australia in terms of its regulation on medical cannabis?
Yeah, Australia is really right at the forefront. I look at the world, I look at the global medicinal cannabis market and think how different it is in every single jurisdiction. You know, it really is fascinating to see how it evolves in each different group or each different part of the world. So in Australia, it's very medicinal focused. So there's no talk of recreational at all. And this has been great for our business model because Australia has a really strict regulatory framework. And this has been amazing for us because even though we've had to jump really high hurdles to get the quality of medicines that the Australian government requires, it then opens a lot of doors in terms of the international markets and in particular the EU, which is where our vision and our future lies. And this is because the Therapeutic Goods Administration, which is the regulatory body for Australia, and the EU have got a mutual recognition agreement, which acknowledges that the pharmacopoeia, which is the EU standard, and the Australian standard are mutually exclusive, they're compliant. And so we're able to export our medicines directly into Europe, which has been amazing. So I'd like to think of Australia as, we started in 2016. We've now got probably about 70,000 patients. The government have actually approved over 170,000 patient applications now, and more than 215 conditions have been prescribed for. So it really goes to show how advanced Australia actually is in terms of the medicinal cannabis program, which is exciting. And then there's so much research coming out of that. And there's health insurance companies that are now putting their hand up saying, we support this. This is here to stay, and we support it and we give rebates for cannabis medicines, and that's huge. So I'd like to think we're leading the world on that side of things in the medicinal cannabis space, and we'll see how it plays out across the rest of the world.
So it's very important. We're seeing that actually in several other companies, that actually the place that they've started, Canada being another very good example, or Australia, that has a key influence on their cannabinoid industries. And but also, I guess what I'm hearing from you is that this very close alignment with the EU gives you a way bigger market, access to a way bigger market than you might have in Australia. Now, we're seeing pictures of greenhouses behind you. You're
Yes.
known for your sun in Australia. Tell me about how you obtain your cannabinoids.
Sure. So in Australia, we've actually got an indoor facility where the environment is 100% controlled. And it's like a hospital. If you walk into a hospital, that's the feeling that you get from our facility. You even have almost like plant surgeons walking around in their surgical masks and their gowns, because it is so sterile. So it's really important because of this consistency issue that we have across the globe. Now, what you can see behind me is actually our European facility. So this is our Danish facility that we recently acquired, and it can do about 20 tonne of raw biomass that then gets produced in a good manufacturing practice laboratory or manufacturing lab. And so we have two very different operations. So one's the greenhouse, which you can see behind me here, and then the other one is an indoor facility. But our end medicines are either oil-based or flowers at the moment. We're looking at capsules soon, and that really will dictate where our product actually comes from. If you're not growing indoors, there can be a challenge in terms of the consistency of the cannabinoids in the medicinal cannabis plants. It's one of the biggest challenges that the industry has at that medicinal level is that consistency, because this is a medicine we're talking about. If you give a patient a Panadol or some other antibiotic or prescription medication, you want to know that it's the same ingredient in that tablet every single time that you take it. And this is no different. It's a medicine. It's prescribed. And one of the issues that we have working with botanicals is that it's very hard to get the consistent amount of cannabinoids, but also the other active ingredients in there time and time again.
Because plants naturally vary from one plant to another.
Completely. Yeah, like one plant, you can have one plant where the flowers on the top will actually have a different cannabinoid profile and percentage to those underneath because of the light spectrum. And it is quite difficult, and it's a challenge. And, those companies that have had more experience are definitely learning how to do this better. But for countries and jurisdictions such as Germany, they are really strict. And when you import, you have to make sure that your label claim is within 10% of what it actually states. And again, it's hard when you're actually dealing with a plant that has a little bit of a mind of its own. So there are certainly challenges there.
There's so much fascinating insights here, but one of the things that strikes you immediately is the ESG problem here, because you've got greenhouses. They're very expensive, they consume huge amounts of power, and maybe they're not sustainable. So thinking about that and about biosynthesis, is biosynthesis a kind of track that you think that you'll go down in due course?
Look, it's a really fascinating topic. And when I was first asked about this, I thought, wow, let's look at it. And there's definitely a space for it. And I think I've outlined just now the downfalls or the negatives about having such a huge facility, and of course the power costs to run this, which is absolutely our biggest cost. And so of course there are many advantages, I think, to the biosynthesis side of things, and particularly that variation issue, that consistency issue that we've been speaking about.
And I guess particularly for the very rare cannabinoids as well.
Yes, I think to be able to, yes, to be able to work with those and modify those and to have them sort of at the beck and call is, I think, really important, because I think that's what we're finding is that the market changes all the time, and it's the patients. This is such a patient-driven industry that the patients say what they want. And often we're finding now that patients are coming through saying, oh, I want the CBGs or a CBN or a THCA. There are 110 different cannabinoids in the plant. We're really only focused on 2 in the industry, which is THC and CBD. But what we're quickly realizing is that there are many more really important cannabinoids and other active ingredients there. So we need to start looking more closely. And I guess that if this is done sort of in a more controlled environment, and particularly the biosynthesis, then it does create a whole new world of opportunities.
And does that alter your own business model, or do you see it as something as a natural evolution?
Yeah, look, I do see it as an evolution, but I think it's important, and I don't think we're going to see any significant advancements in the next few years. And I'm only saying that, and I'm sorry if anyone's listening saying that's not true, but I know what we have to go through in terms of getting regulatory approval and just getting our validation studies done, our stability data in the laboratory. Like, there is significant amount of evidence that will need to be produced as well as verified. And it's going to be a huge investment, a huge amount of time. And I think that for a long time, it's just not going to quite replace the power that a full plant extract or a flower provides, particularly to certain patients, mainly on the recreational side or adult use side, but certainly on that medicinal side that I'm more interested in.
And that's a really interesting phenomenon, which we've explored a bit, which is that there's a great deal of feeling amongst patients that it's the whole plant. It's not just one cannabinoid or another, but it's the combination within the plant that actually gives them the full experience that they're looking for.
So much, there is a lot of research, like so much has been done on this. It's called the entourage effect. And that is one of the issues, is that if you isolate a cannabinoid, does it really have the same impact and the same effect? And this is why Little Green Pharma was named why it is, because we didn't want to be big pharma that manufactures synthetic medicines in a lab. We wanted to be Little Green Pharma, that we still practice those manufacturing techniques in that professional lab environment, but we wanted to capture the entire plant. We wanted to be as natural as possible. In my mind, I feel that the plant is there for a reason. It knows better than anybody how it reacts with the body, and that there are certain cannabinoids and other active ingredients, whether it's flavonoids or terpenes, that come together to create this synergistic effect that you and I can't explain. It's like a lock and key system. And I think we just need to understand it more before we can say, nope, that doesn't affect our medical patients. So I think that's why I'm saying I think there's a bit more time that's needed before biosynthesis really takes over. But I certainly think that there's a place for it, for sure.
Now, Fleta, just let's look at the whole sector in the round for a moment, if we may, because we've seen this extraordinary explosion of interest, and we've got everything from CBD dog biscuits and CBD impregnated pants, which is my favorite one. It's coffees, it's all sorts of things. What do you think is driving all of this, and how is this sector going to mature? Because for sure there'll be no market for CBD pants.
Yeah, look, it's strange, isn't it? All these added little things that people keep coming up with. But yeah, look, that's phenomenal. I think if you're looking at the hemp side, different story. I think when people start to use these buzzwords such as CBD, then we start to exploit it a little bit, which is a bit unfortunate, because it takes away from the real properties that this cannabinoid in the plant can actually provide. So I understand why people are doing it. I get it. It's business. and it's a sort of a buzzword. Is it a fad? Look, I don't think it is a fad per se. I think these cannabinoids are here to stay. But how the CBD, the wellness market, is managed, it's very different in each jurisdiction now, and understanding that is quite different. So, for example, in the UK, CBD sort of is available, it's through that wellness component, whereas in Australia, up until recently, it was only a medicine that could be prescribed, even though CBD doesn't have that psychoactive response associated with it. So each jurisdiction is different, and how people are coming out with new products is really dependent on, I guess, on each different market. But it is interesting to see these buzzwords come out and what people are coming up with, because I mean, good on them. If it's a great business idea, then I think that's excellent.
Do you worry that sometimes the trivialisation, I mean, I'm sure we're moments away, if not already there, with the scandal that discovers that there's no active compound in some product, or there's, because people are taking advantage of the hype. But it does have the ability to have a knock-on effect on legitimate businesses such as yours.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. I think if the authorities don't come down on this pretty quickly and stamp out those that are exploiting perhaps the public, then it can leave a bad taste in everybody's mouth. And I think that's something that we need to look at. We know for a fact that CBD medicines or products in particular, both in the US and the UK, have been tested, and a lot of it wasn't what was on the label. So we are misleading, and I think that's atrocious. But it does go to show the placebo effect that potentially comes into play. So whether or not, if people are getting a good effect from it, but there's no CBD, well, I don't really mind about that, even though the company should be almost penalised for misleading. But I think that's great if the patient is responding very well, regardless. But I think they are starting to come down. We are starting to get test results in for the labels. So I think that will be shut down pretty quickly now, and we can start to see what the real results are with good, reputable products and companies that have done the hard yards to really test the safety and efficacy of their products to make sure that it's fit for human consumption.
So take us to the future, to say 5 years' time. What do you think will be happening in the sector? It will have matured, perhaps we'll have lost some of these, get rich quick merchants with an eye to the main chance. But what do you see the future as?
Yeah, I see a lot of consolidation happening. I think we're starting to see that already. A lot of the smaller groups will fall away. I think, this is not for the faint-hearted. It's not for a quick look. In Canada, they had a really great run early on, but it's much harder now for businesses to start. Investor money is still hard to raise. Investors have seen enough through Canada and even Australia in the early years to be a little bit wiser and smarter, and be a bit more sensible about investing money and saying, show me the road to profits. Show me the road. How am I going to make money here? Show me the long term. And all of a sudden it's shifted. The investor money has kind of shifted from being this, well, one day this is what we're going to do, to no. I need to see the model. I need to see you making a profit. And I need to see, the pathways, how you're going to get there. So I think a lot of those companies starting will have challenges because they won't have the backing, because unless they've got a really solid plan about they know their product, they know their patients or who they're delivering their products to if it's over the counter, and then how they're going to generate revenue is. If they don't have that in place, then it's just not going to happen. So I think now, investors particularly, we will be looking for those really smart plans. So that's how I see things consolidating and coming together. And I believe new jurisdictions are really starting to open up, probably sometimes more quickly than others. But I think, that's really exciting for the whole industry. And once you can get into places, even like Germany, for example, then you're very well set and positioned to capture the medicinal or the pharmaceutical market in additional countries and jurisdictions as they begin to open up too.
Well, you've perfectly segued into asking what are the smart plans for Little Green Pharma. Just tell us what investors should expect from Little Green Pharma.
So, yeah, Little Green Pharma, look, we, in Australia particularly, we're known for hitting our milestones. So what we say we're going to do, we always do, we always deliver. So I love that about Little Green Pharma. And just to summarise, that vertically integrated business model, I think has been so helpful to us. It's made us, we've had complete control over that supply chain, which was challenging during COVID, but because we owned and operated that, it gave us that control, which is great. And so we've proven in Australia and also here closer into the European markets, cost discipline, so being cost conscious is one of the most important things, and investors are constantly looking at. We've demonstrated market share in Australia, and so we know that we can sort of pick up that model, not quite a cookie cutter approach, but we can pick up that model and put it into a new jurisdiction and then sort of tweak that depending on the local environment. But look, I mean, we've got the biggest backers and investors in Australia. You know, we've got Hancock Prospecting, which is Gina Reinhardt, who's the wealthiest person in Australia. So she's behind Little Green Pharma. You know, we've got such a huge market opportunity in terms of these jurisdictions opening up. And I just think we're really well positioned now, thanks to the acquisition in Denmark. So we're actually in the market that we want to be, as well as, of course, in Australasia and the APAC region. And we've got those proven strategies to capture market share in these new and emerging markets. So I love where we're positioned. So now it's just about getting down to the sales and making sure we deliver.
Fleta Solomon, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much.
Oh, Vivienne, thank you for having me. Lovely to chat with you as well. So thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye.